Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Turtlecast. You are here today with special guest Jason Loomis. He's the Chief Information Executive over at Mindbody. And if you haven't heard of it, you're going to hear about it right now because this is a very people-first company. We are talking about culture. We are talking about health. We are talking about a holistic way to run a business. And we are talking about a holistic way to manage your own life by being on this application. So, Jason, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. And I would love if you could just kick it off for the people that don't know much about Mindbody. Just give them a brief background about the firm and what you are doing there and what you guys see for your mission, vision, principles going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Mindbody we are a global SaaS, software as a service solution provider for health, beauty, and wellness. So if you owned a gym, a hair salon, or a spa, or an acupuncture clinic, you would use our software and our services to run your business. Everything from scheduling your customers and clients, to paying your employees, to billing your customers, to scheduling your trainers. We do it all. Been around for about 20 years. Started in the garage of a guy in San Luis Obispo, Rick, our former CEO and founder. Started in his garage and just blew up from there.
No, so what's with people starting everything in garages in California?
I know, yeah.
I don't understand.
I don't have room in my house. I have to start in my garage.
Now, listen, you're already cornered into that room as is, right? It's funny. I've had personal experience with Mindbody. So I've been to many yoga studios. I've had gyms back on the East Coast that I've been a part of, and Mindbody was the application that they ran everything through. If I wanted to schedule a class, like look at stats or how I'm, interacting with other individuals that are part of this application, I thought it was a wonderful way of bringing a community of people who are working towards their own health and wellness onto this platform. And the fact that, people that run a yoga studio, they're trying to do yoga. They're not trying to really focus on the business itself. So the ability for you guys to offload that trouble of the whole, business software aspect and management and tracking and finance and scheduling, and say, we can help you with that. We can take that worry away and you can focus on doing the teaching that is really going to benefit people right now in the physical. I think that's a fantastic avenue to be on.
Yeah, I agree. It's, I look at it like, we're a bigger QuickBooks. So QuickBooks is the same thing. If you run your own business, the last thing you want to be doing is accounting. Well, nobody wants to be doing accounting anyways. Please, accountants. I don't think anybody likes accounting. No. But yeah, that's exactly. It allows the practitioners of your business to focus on what they do best, which is, the health, beauty, and wellness space, not, having to do search engine optimization or having to worry about marketing emails and who do I go partner with marketing emails, or now I got to be PCI compliant. You just use our app and our payment system. It handles everything for you. So it makes life easier for some.
No, I think that's incredible. And, we are people first. We are data first. And when you look at the holistic aspects of people using this application, are you using data to help drive these very real world tangible benefits when people are interacting with the Mindbody application?
We do. We listen to our customers feverishly, and to be honest, historically, that might have been, we felt we probably didn't do it as well as we should have. But over the last few years, we pivoted our focus to be, we really need to listen to which sounds like business 101, listen to your customer base. But, it wasn't that we weren't listening. We probably just weren't listening to enough of them and didn't have our processes in place to be able to pivot as fast. The pivot for us for the last few years has been around agile development, being able to react fast to a new need. For example, when the COVID nightmare hit last year, the pivot was video on demand. Gym owners are like, well, I can't have people in my class, but people still want to take my yoga. So, we immediately within 30 to 45 days had a video on demand service, stood up for our customers so that they can then, hey, you can come into my class, come into my studio and do video on demand. So the ability to pivot fast and react to what customers need is really one of our driving forces.
No, I think that's amazing. And the fact that you guys have been so successful, immensely successful with listening to a customer and then adapting your solutions to their needs because you're having direct communication with those people rather than just saying, here's a software, we created it, you try and fit yourself into the software. When you're like, hey, we can be flexible, we can actually meet you where you need to be met and create something that actually drives a higher value. And that happened through that conversation, that direct connection with those individuals. Am I right?
That is correct. Yeah, we don't follow the Clippy model of Microsoft.
Yeah. Snap, he dropped it. He was right there.
Yeah, Jason, I want to ask you, whenever it comes to your guys' company, like a data philosophy, and I know you know about cybersecurity, but not just cybersecurity, and maybe you can talk on that. How do you guys look at data? Kind of more in a philosophical way when you're looking at the transparency of data and protection of data.
To be honest, I answer that with a little Jekyll and Hyde. So the Jekyll part's good. Wait, who's the good guy? There's the security piece of that. When you ask me
Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, yeah.
Okay, Jekyll's the good guy. So I'm going to go from the business side, the Jekyll, and then I'll tell you my cybersecurity side on that. Because sometimes, to be honest, they're at a very nice, healthy conflict. From the business side, man, it's all about the data, and it does actually benefit the consumer and the customer. Because with that data, we can understand, and look, let's go with like heat maps and web pages, taking the data of who is doing what and interacting with your site or your mobile app, understanding that lets you build a better mobile app and something that's easier and faster for them to use. And for our customers, we call them consumers. That's the people that are going to our customers' gyms. For them, making their life easier to interact with their gym is going to drive revenue for the customer. It's going to make the consumer more happy. It's going to be great. So data, it's all about data. You need that data to understand how you're interacting with your customer. Now, you want to ask me that?
And so then what's the Hyde part?
Security perspective? So security, it scares the crap out of me. It is. I am a gigantic privacy advocate, but there are ways that you can get the information that you need, but not tie it to the individual. That's really the key. The problem with a lot of data science and a lot of data warehousing and systems we're using now is we're not us, but companies are using is they're not going through the effort that you need to do to pseudonymize. I can never pronounce it right. To anonymize the data. So you're still getting that heat map and that how are people reacting, but you're protecting the privacy and ensuring that you're not exposing the data of individual consumers.
Well, yeah, no, it's beneficial. I mean, we look at data and you owning it as a right. So it's like you go into somebody's house. This isn't like a college where you go in there and just like ravage the frat house, right? Somebody lives in here. And if these are their assets, their things, you want to manage and respect that. So if I'm going to move a chair and analyze how I sit in that chair to be comfortable, whatever it might be, I need to put that back, right? Or if I go in there, this is a private conversation behind closed doors. And that's where that ends. I shouldn't just open up the door like some sort of barn animal and let all the information out and everybody can do as they please. That's sort of like bad practice. So I'm really curious about how is it that you take the culture of your workplace, the culture of the people that use your software and solutions, and how do you actually channel that into the use of data and respecting that data and understanding it? Because if you don't match one thing one way for the respect of a human being, just because it's the data and it's not physical, it doesn't mean it shouldn't also have that same sort of respect. So do you transition that cultural value that you have into your analysis of that data?
Yeah, the customer and the consumer come first. Do the right thing. That's one of our core values is we want to do the right thing. So when we're faced with a question of like, well, the law says we should do this with the data or we should, protect it in this way, we would probably go to what is the best thing to do, not necessarily. It means it would probably be more, we call them restrictive controls. So if the law just says,
sure,
you don't need to encrypt that, you can get away with not encrypting it, we will most likely choose to encrypt it because it's the right thing to do.
No, I think that's a good standard of practice. I mean, we all know laws are written in blood. They're pretty much reactive pieces of policy that come back and tell us what to do. But the way technology advances, the way people are advancing in how they run their businesses and the amount of data you can collect, we need to have the proper morals and ethics in the management of that information, just like we would have, if we were a good person going to meet and have a conversation with an individual in person, right? In our mind, there's no difference. The data is their thoughts, behaviors, and actions. And that should be treated with the same respect as us being here on this call or me sitting in this room talking to someone, face to face.
That's why Apple is killing it right now. They're taking that exact stance that you're talking about. They're getting ahead of the curve. Nobody's telling them they have to be the privacy nuts. They're being the privacy nuts because it's the right thing to do. And being the industry leader, man, they're setting the best example. because probably regulation won't catch up for another 5 years to what Apple's doing right now, but I'll bet you it will.
No, I precisely agree. And it's about being those leaders, being those champions. And from what, you tell us, you are taking that stance to be that torchbearer. Now, in bearing that torch, how do you see the evolution of what you're doing going forward? Are you going to take more data-driven approaches? Are you always going to try and be ahead of that curve? How is it that Mindbody will continue to be the leader in what you do with your culture, your analysis, and your applications and software?
You don't ask easy questions.
No, I never. No, that's why people are like, oh, I don't want to go on here. They ask some deep questions. It's too much.
There were 3 conjunction junctions in that sentence.
Yeah.
So data will always be core to Mindbody. If we're going to be successful, and I can't imagine that changing for any company over the next 10, 20 years. In fact, I think it's going to get to the point where the food truck down the street is going to be a data-driven food truck. They're going to know their customer. They're going to know how to market to their customer. They're going to know how much to charge because it's all going to be based on data. If anything, it'll be, not the socializing, but the another word I'm having trouble pronouncing, democratization of data. Thank you.
Must be a Jason thing.
Yeah, I'm Jason too, and I do that with him all the time, so he's used to that.
Okay.
For us,
it's always going to be data.
You're correct.
What's that? Sorry.
It does become inherently decentralized. You are correct with that democratization where, I'm owning it and I can actually go and share and do things under my own power and accord as a sovereign individual.
So for us, it's always going to be a data-driven organization. We're always going to be driven by what the consumer and customer comes first. And then from a security perspective, how I drive that is we are the leader in our, there's nobody else that comes close to the breadth and depth of the security program that we have at Mindbody. When you look at most of the people that are in our space or most of the competitors in our space, to be honest, it is also a size thing. When you're an Apple or you're a Google, we are not that big, but comparatively, we work against a lot of smaller players and they just don't have resources and budget to be able to support a comprehensive privacy and security program like we do. So it's always going to be core to what we do because we're at that scale that we absolutely take.
And that's amazing.
Part of what we do.
And that's a big claim. And do you have the ability to actually prove that to the people if they come asking? We could all sit here all day long and say we're the greatest people in the world doing all this, but you can actually prove what is going into that. So people are like, it's all well and good, but people that have managed our data in the past have said, they were doing these practices, but in truth, other things were going on. So do you have the ability to stick to that and be transparent in your corporate practices?
We are actually a few different ways. We have publicly available security white papers that explain our entire program, and it's not a little one-sheeter that says, hey, we run cybersecurity. It's about 10 to 12 pages describing the program and parts of the program and why. That's the public consumption. If you become, or you're even interested in becoming a customer of ours, once we get through that, 3-letter word that was overused for the last 4 years called NDA, once we get through that, we then share with you this very comprehensive, we call it a information package that includes a standardized SIG. If you're familiar with that, anybody in the cybersecurity world knows it's about a 400 questionnaire standard based on cybersecurity that we answer every single question you could ever possibly want to ask, along with all of our certifications and proof of certifications. We are high trust CSF certified. We are PCI level 1 service provider certified, and then SOC 1, and we're looking towards SOC 2 in the next few years. So we provide all that to you as well.
Wow. That's a headache, and congratulations for doing that.
Thanks.
Jason, I wanted to get in a little bit about with your company, and I know on your LinkedIn profile you talk about this a little bit, but what are some of the things that you guys, from a leadership perspective, what are some of the things that you guys learned through this pandemic that we could share to, other chief information officers, chief technology officers, other those C-suites? What are some of the things that you guys pivoted and were successful at?
Man, listen to your cybersecurity team. I feel we were fortunate that we were positioned because we embraced the idea of zero trust, another great overused marketing term. But we were positioned to take advantage of zero trust access for our entire team, means all employees of Mindbody, to where it really didn't affect us moving to a work from home scenario. So for us, we were ready for it. All it took was a little bit of ramping up at the end and maybe rushing things out the door 3 months prior. So when your cybersecurity team is recommending ideas for remote access and a way to secure your individuals and your endpoint, you don't look at it like, well, if you're in the office, you're safe. You should be able to work from Starbucks. You should be able to work from your garage, from wherever you want, and be secure. That's a big part of enabling us to be able to do what we do.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Now, whenever you're looking at, because this is interesting, and I don't think companies are looking at this, the risk that they have when they have employees working from home, just on their laptop with their Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it would normally keep me up at night. In our old methodology, when I first arrived, we had the old way is you have a thing called a VPN that just gives you broad access. So the risk is, oh, hey, I'm going to go check out my personal email. And then I get a link from grandma that says, hey, check out the new photos I just put up. I got to install an application to watch the photos. 1, 2, 3, slam dunk. You're now, breached, and some hacker somewhere or some kid in his pajamas in his grandmother's basement now has full access to your computer. So yeah, that's a real risk. And it hasn't been tough for me at Mindbody, but I have other people in my position at other companies that it's tough explaining to the executives or to senior leaders why that's such a big risk.
Why do you think, I'll hand this over to Alex, but why do you think that there are why do people take cybersecurity and then wait? Why are they so reactive to it instead of proactive?
Because there's no revenue and there's no cost savings. It's a risk reduction.
That's good.
So until
gosh, you don't even think you have to go any further with that, because you talk about cybersecurity and saying, well, if the person doesn't get shot, well, then we'll worry about it later when there's an issue, right? Mm-hmm. Like, why don't we try and focus on the things that can happen right now that would create dramatic effects later, rather than try and put out the fire or invest in things after the fact that's happened. And then you're always just cleaning up this mess. Why wouldn't you want to just decrease that risk now for less of a payout later? Even though, because it's not a revenue driver, put the people first, put the safety first, put these core values first, be proactive. If Mindbody came out and said, oh, we're just going to be reactive about your health, are you kidding me? People wouldn't even use the system. What's Mindbody about that? If you're reactive, it's all about those thoughts first that lead someone to take those actions. So when I think of cybersecurity practices and that it's not translating over to a C-suite team because it doesn't drive revenue, I think it's frankly absurd. It's more of a risk for you to say, oh, hey, this doesn't drive revenue, so let's not focus on it. Well, if it doesn't drive revenue, but it actually deals with the quality of how people are interacting with this and the longevity of our firm, this is a focus. This is a priority completely outside of just money alone.
Unfortunately, the market drivers, and I agree with you, that's the world I want to live in. But I don't believe the market drivers are there. The market drivers are quarterly results. What's your growth? What's your revenue? When a company is a startup, you think they're asking, hey, how good is your cybersecurity program when they're being assessed or being valued? No, it's the last question on the list in fine print. They're saying, what numbers are you putting up? What's your profit margin? What's your CAGR? And that's what they're judged by. So cybersecurity will always fall to the wayside. And that's where things like regulation can come in and help. Because if they say, for example, the mortgage crash or the financial crashes where they said, you know what, you now have to have a certain percentage in reserves. They wouldn't have put that money in reserves. They would have given back to the shareholders. They would have paid it in bonuses if you didn't tell them, hey, you got to do this much. So in a way, regulation may help that in cybersecurity by saying, you know what, at a minimum, 10% of your IT budget must be spent on security, regardless of size, regardless of what you do.
Like, think about it, it preserves the company. It preserves the executives. It preserves the people that work at the company supporting it. And cybersecurity also preserves all the business owners that use your platform. So if anything, that's the biggest key driver to revenue. It's not a direct one, but it's the thing that fundamentally supports all of it. You guys are essentially a technology company. If you just open up the floodgates for any type of cybersecurity issue, well then, I wouldn't even be focused on revenue at that point. You got other holes you got to plug.
One would think, man, but I'll tell you, here's another theory that I have is I honestly believe the public, meaning Joe, U.S. citizen, is getting numb to the amount of hacks and data breaches where I don't know if they're going to be affecting stock price. I don't know if they're going to be affecting the bottom line of these companies much. That if somebody gets hacked, are you really going to suffer? Yeah, Target definitely got hit. Some big ones get hit, but I'm waiting for someone to do a study on that to find the actual true, do some reverse regression analysis, the impact of a breach on the company's bottom line, and does it really affect them?
We can do some good ones here. Yeah, and I will, for the company alone, but when we look at what we do on our marketplace, right? And I'm just going to give ourselves a little plug, no pun intended. An individual is generating this data as an asset. If somebody has a breach and they, for whatever reason, find some sort of, quantum mechanical ability to hack our marketplace, blow through it with some special rainbow table and take all this data for free and not be able to compensate these individuals, that's maybe, for instance, $3 worth of food, which is a week's worth of food in some developing countries that people interact with us. Frankly, I don't give a shit about the revenue of the company. I'm more of a focus of you took assets from somebody that someone was using to feed themselves, to pay for their medical bills. The impact is far beyond, being numb to the breach because it hit a stock price. You took something that is actually affecting a human life. And that is a massive differential. I think that's the area that is missed currently today is people are like, oh, breach, we become numb to it, whatever, here's a stock price. It's not a big deal anymore. Well, now that things become more democratized, like you were saying, more decentralized, the power goes back to the individual. So their lives are now directly affected. The companies are no longer going to act as the buffer for these individuals. They feel that brunt. And so if we do a poor job by offering tools that have these holes, these gaps in cybersecurity, this has a direct effect on the lives of these individuals. And that's how I see it.
I agree. I'd be high-fiving you if we're in the same room right now.
That's what I'm talking about. Right. All right. No, so I mean, listen, that's the flavor, that's the take. We're deeply passionate about it. And, we're just happy that you're here sharing your passions. And when people think, oh, cybersecurity, that's boring. Data, that's boring. Well, in truth, data are the things that are driving all of our decisions. And whether you recorded it on a server, some sort of silicon wafer, or you put it in a journal, or you just spoke it to somebody, those are the things that affect human life before a dollar's ever spent. Before a person comes to sign up and use the Mindbody software for their business, you had to talk to them about it. There was an exchange that happened. And if there's going to be a miss, if there's a weakness, a fundamental weakness to this tool, then that's going to have dramatic effects on them. They won't be able to thrive. They won't be able to teach those yoga classes. They won't be able to get people to sign up. And then the outcome of that, because you have a cybersecurity leak, that transitions over to, well, if I have a community of people that were relying on the studio and that's no longer there, well, then they can't go through their health and wellness practices. Now that's affected people 3 or 4 degrees outside of something just because of a cybersecurity failure. And that's just like when we think about it in that systemic approach, like it's important that we always transfer these core values of having people first. And we champion you for what you are doing. And we are so happy to have you on here to speak about putting the individual first, those core values of what it means to be a human and have that translate into your company and your practices.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm going to ask the last question before we go. You talk a lot about like mission-oriented culture and mindset. Whenever you look at the employees that you have, how is that transferred? I know we went through, like you talked about it, being horrific pandemic, and I know that affected your business. But in something as negative as that, especially when it came to, Mindbody and a lot of these studios, these salons and stuff being closed, what was that transition, and how was it with your guys' leadership with your employees?
It was difficult, yet easier than I would have thought. We had to go through some cuts. That was tough, really tough. Tough for me personally as a leader. I really take exception to being accountable and responsible for my team when I bring somebody on board, and the fact that I can give them safety and security of a job, probably one of the most, besides being married, most impactful relationship you'll have in your life. I took it really personal. It was hard. The good news is that I was fully supportive of them when they left, and they knew that it wasn't anything to do with them, that it's just the market. Going back to that idea, it's what the market will do, and it sucked. We got through it. We came out of it stronger. What I really liked too about Mindbody was what they did with our customers. Was we helped our customers through, and it honestly was not a revenue thinking thing. We gave them, you're struggling, we're going to give you 3 months free, 6 months free. Stay with us. We're with each other here. We know you're not going to be doing anything. We're going to keep you on the platform. Here, try out our video. We think you can do this, and helping them through that journey that they were struggling with. I think actually that's like a really powerful story of Mindbody and what they did. I was really proud of some of the things and some of the ways that we helped our customers with that.
So you said video, which is technology. Can you kind of go into that a little bit? How you guys, because this is a huge pivot, and this is something that where you're putting the customer first. And you said even with this, horrific situation, you guys came out better. You said, can you kind of go into a little bit of detail about the video so that people can understand that?
Yeah, and I'm going to talk a very high level because I'm not a developer, nor do I know all I know is as an end user, it's pretty darn awesome how it works. But it is, you can, as a gym owner, you film one of your classes and you follow our easy steps to upload it into your site, and then people can watch. We even do on-demand video. So if you're like, hey, I'm going to do this class at 5 o'clock we're going to go with the garage again. From my garage, you can have video on-demand classes where your customers can sign up and watch remotely, all done through the Mindbody app, versus something like Zoom, where you have to have a Zoom license and then figure out how to use it. Ours is all within the ecosystem of Mindbody. So if you're already on our platform, using VOD via the app was pretty easy.
No, that's amazing. And it's funny how technology, everybody was like a specialist at everything. And then as things became more remote and tools became more remote, and systems had the ability to speak to one another, it's funny how we've been able to now just stitch our own fabric of what we want to design things very quickly. We have the ability to adapt, whether it be with the data or the tools. If I'm, for instance, I like to rock climb, right? I have the ability to choose from a plethora of tools to bring them together to allow me to move up a rock face. When before I'd have to go to a specialist. Maybe he's over at Camp 4 in Yosemite. You know what I mean? Hey, I need you to forge some of this stuff for me. But now there's so many people that can design these tools with these efficiencies, and we can bring them together to allow us to adapt and drive this new technology, a video hosting platform right within who we are at Mindbody. So now it becomes a much more, holistic, well-rounded tool, and it allows you to diversify all these different areas of your business and essentially de-risk it by bringing this stuff in. So I think in this time of uncertainty that you were dealing with, making these transitions and offering up, these other tools, it actually made the company more resilient. And it also gave options to the business owners to make them and their businesses more resilient. And I think that is just absolutely fabulous.
You are literally describing microservices architecture, but you're using it in a real physical world. And that is exactly that. Video is a microservice for us. And that's what they're doing. Imagine going from a mainframe to pulling all those different pieces out and making them a bunch of services that, just like you described, you can interconnect. I'm going to use crypto here. I'm going to use auth over here. And it's a service that I just need to call, but I can piece it together and build powerful stuff. And that is literally our microservices architecture drive for the next 2 to 3 years.
I love that. Well, listen, guys, you're clearly on the right path. And the fact that you think my real world application made sense, I think that feels pretty good.
Yeah, I want to ask the last question for sake of time and want to make sure that we're respectful of that. If you had to, with your years of experience and this people-centric approach that you have, what would you say to other corporations when they look at cybersecurity? How could they start being more proactive, especially with the amount of data that we're using right now?
I'm going to be a little tactical with this answer. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Start with the CIS top 20 critical security controls. It's these 20 things you need to do, and they're in order of importance. So it's very simple. It's like the idiot's guide to cybersecurity. Start with number 1. Knock that out. Go to number 2. Don't read ahead to page 10 or control number 15. Start in order, and believe it or not, I'm a fanatic about this. You're going to have people selling you things like threat modeling, and have you analyzed your risks? Don't even worry about that. Get your basic controls in place, because the magic of this top 20 is that if you just did the first 5 things in that list, and it's been proven, you will reduce your cybersecurity risk by 85%. So start small, start easy, use a very easy framework called CIS Top 20. It's fantastic.
And start using Mindbody.
Yes, log on to Mindbody. Get the app.
Yeah. Well, listen, Jason, that was truly fantastic. Thank you again for coming on, and we really appreciate all the time. And this message will go far and wide, and it will resonate with everyone that hears it. So again, thank you for sharing this. Thank you for talking about the journey, the culture, and really happy to have you on.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Jason. This has been great.